Oops, I can't get rid of a screen that keeps popping up in the middle.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for hanging in until we all showed up. I'm going to call the meeting to order of the Public Safety Committee, Studio City Neighborhood Council at 6:08. And let's call roll. Scott Mandel, I'm here. Jeff Hartwick.
Present.
And Patty Kirby.
Here.
And Marcia Newman. I don't see her yet, so she is not here. We have a quorum, so we're going to go forward with the agenda. So the next agenda item is the approval of the September minutes, which you all have. Not hearing any objections. Approved. And now for the chair update. Just want to bring you up to date on a few things. We didn't have a board meeting last month, so I'm just going to quickly remind you of the motions from September that will be carried over to this month, just so we have an idea of what to expect. We approved the joint motion with the Government Affairs. Is that Government Affairs? Or we do that with Transportation? That was Transportation, sorry, my mistake. And that was the illegal street racing, drag racing, traffic calming measures. So that will be on the agenda. We have another motion of the similar topic with reckless driving and the facilitating of the illegal street racing. That will be on. And we also have a third motion regarding the modified mufflers in the noise sensitive areas. Those were all approved and they should all be in the works. There's another motion we have that we approved, but may be pulled. It was a council file regarding 4118, and it was listing every single school in the entire Los Angeles area to be a prohibited zone. As I understand it, as the 4118 is evolving, that is not how the council is going to be addressing this. They're going to do multiple motions of a few areas in specific districts rather than one motion encompassing the entire city. So with that in mind, that's probably going to die in the Public Works Committee where it rests at the moment. So we'll probably pull that for next week. A few other things. The number one issue, of course, is for everyone in Studio City that contacts us is the homeless issue. I'm sure many of you know, a lot of the encampments are gone or significantly reduced. They're still the park and ride area, which is still a major problem, but almost all the other encampments are completely gone or diminished in size. And I want to give a shout out to our homeless committee and what they've been doing to try to remedy the situation. At the last homelessness committee meeting, we had a rep from the county who didn't give very promising information about the park and ride lot. She didn't seem very informed. However, the rep from our state assembly office and our council office were pretty much on the ball, and especially our state, they're gonna start picking up the pace with Caltrans and addressing some of the trash and vandalism and homeless issues on the Caltrans property. So I urge everyone who hasn't seen the homeless committee meeting from the other day to go to YouTube and check that out. Another issue sort of related to public safety is, we mentioned this last time, Jessica Fugate resigned from Paul Krikorian's office. As far as I know, there is no replacement. As soon as there is, I'll be working with whoever that person is on the issues that we're addressing. Lastly, Jonathan along the Riverwalk is apparently in custody, so we can breathe a little easier now. I have contacted MRCA, so if and when Jonathan comes back to that area, I'll be contacting the ranger there who will take action if it's possible to prevent him from loitering or doing some of the other activities he's been doing in the MRCA land. And we'll see how Mark Ridley Thomas, his indictment affects public safety, as he was the chair of the homeless committee. So that will be unfolding soon. Next item, number 4, public comments and clarifications on non-agenda items. Anyone from the public who wishes to speak, raise your hand, and we'll give you a minute. I see Barry. So Barry, go ahead, unmute yourself, and I'll start the timer.
Hi, I was just curious if you mentioned Caltrans. So does that mean like at the park and ride, on the other side of the fence is the area between the fence and the actual freeway lanes is Caltrans property? And that is filthy just as well. It's filthy on both sides of the fence. So does that mean Caltrans is going to start cleaning up their property between the fence and the freeway lane?
I'll answer that. I can tell you that Emma Taylor in Nazarian's office is going to get on Caltrans to do it. And I'm going to be providing Emma with exact coordinates of all the Caltrans areas in our area for her to then get in touch with Caltrans. So one of the issues was people reporting the Caltrans issues and not giving accurate descriptions. And I'll be giving her actual geotagged locations so she can then dispatch Caltrans to those particular areas. And she seemed pretty enthusiastic about addressing that. So time will tell. I'll have more information. I'll gather more information within the next week, and then be able to report back to everybody soon. And then Kim, please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm just wondering why a lot has been cleaned up as far as a lot of the encampments are gone, but the park and ride isn't. And that one poses the most danger. I live very, very close to it. In the last couple Sundays, I've had to call 911 out for screaming crazy people on drugs. And it's rampant in our area. It's causing tremendous problems. So Caltrans cleaning up is not going to do a thing. That's not even our concern. So I'd love to hear more when you have it. I understand you may not gotten the best update from the last person who was around, but I'm particularly interested there. Any info is great. Thank you.
And it's county, not city.
Yeah, I was going to say Brenda, let me find her last name here. Brenda Yanez from Sheila Kuehl's office is the point person for the county portion of that property. And we've been dealing, the public and the council and everybody else in the community has been dealing with Sheila Kuehl's office for quite some time, other committees as well. And there's been a few cleanups, but it doesn't seem like the county is really responding to the complaints. I know the sheriff has been there many times, their host team, and they've spoken to the board and gave us their take on it. But the county seems to be, for lack of a better word, dropping the ball. And if you take a look at the last homeless meeting and listen to what she had to say, it doesn't sound like they're very well informed as to what's actually going on in the lot. It's very frustrating, and it's really not for our city, or at least they're not going to do anything about it. They say it's the county, and the county is dragging their feet. So watch the last homelessness committee meeting, and then maybe attend the next one and make public comment there. But I'm also going to be contacting her with more information about the actual status of the park and ride, because I don't think she's actually seen it in quite some time. Hope that
Thank
answers.
you.
Yeah, it's not an excuse. It's just the way things are. Seeing no other hands, we're going to close public comment, and Sean was going to jump on if he can make it. I don't see him. So we're going to skip 5 and 6 for now. And hold on, let me just shut this door. Sorry about that. We're going to go on to item 7, which is discussion and possible motion, community impact statement pertaining to the designation of locations for enforcement against sitting, lying, sleeping, or storing, using, maintaining, or placing personal property or otherwise obstructing the public right of way with respect to Council File 21-4118-S4, designation of prohibited locations, Council District 2, LAMC 41-1821-0929. This motion is also to be submitted as a community impact statement to that same council file number. And basically, we have 3 in a row that are almost identical. It's pertaining to the same thing, same council member, same council file with the different last 2 digits because the locations are different. So if I can get a second on that motion.
I second it.
Okay, I'll read, I'm sorry, I probably should have read the motion. But thank you. I'll read it and then we'll go to public comment. I can put it on the screen if anyone needs, if I talk too fast, but these 3 will pretty much be all the same. The Board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council, SCNC, supports Council File 21-4118-S4, titled Designation of Prohibited Locations, Council District 2, LAMC Section 41.1821-0929. The LA City Council passed and the mayor signed revisions to Los Angeles Municipal Code Sections 41.18C1 and D. As per the ordinance, council members are responsible for designating locations where encampments and other associated activities are to be prohibited within 500 feet. We support Council Member Krikorian's designation of Moore Park Avenue between Elmer Avenue and Bellflower Street underpass, as well as the 3 other locations outside of Studio City, but within CD2 as prohibited locations. This motion is also to be submitted as a community impact statement to that same council file. So in a nutshell, what's going to happen with the 4118 designations is our council member and 6 others so far have submitted resolutions for council approval. The council member lists the locations that they want prohibited. They get a second, it goes to the council and the council votes. That's how they are handling the 4118. And what I'm proposing is that we support the locations that Paul Krikorian is nominating for prohibited use. He is not banning or criminalizing, this motion does not criminalize homelessness, poverty, or any of that. It simply states that in these particular locations, these activities are not allowed for public safety, for public right of way, for a host of reasons that the city council already discussed when they approved 4118. There's also some talk about if you take all these areas and make a map of the city, more than half the city will be red prohibiting encampments. That's actually not true because they're not designating, as I mentioned before, they're not designating every single possible location in the entire city. These are very specific locations where encampments pose some type of public access, public health issue, public safety issue. That being said, we're going to go to public comment, and Barry Johnson, please go ahead.
I was just going to say I applaud Councilman Krikorian for being one of the first to get a list out. And as you know, the city was told by a federal judge that they had to do certain things. They have done those things. They are still doing those things. And that's what entitled them to go, the city, to now do this ordinance to say where you can't be. And, you know, if I was in a wheelchair, navigation would have been impossible. And I'm so glad to see most of our underpasses cleared again, such that someone in a wheelchair can get by. And I don't see this as anti-homeless. I just think, you know, now that people are being offered places to stay and live, they just can't be obstructing our passageways any longer. An end had to come, and thank God this ordinance came about. Thank you.
Thanks, Barry. I see a hand up from Randy Freed. Please go ahead and unmute yourself and speak.
Already unmuted. I think what's just to echo some of what Barry's saying, I think what oftentimes, and probably our trusty CPAB folks could confirm, something that oftentimes is not mentioned is that these encampments that have been under freeways in these areas that are since cleaned, these encampments are oftentimes the people that are in those encampments, they themselves become victims. They are victimized by fellow homeless. They are victimized by gangs that are charging rent to be in those places. And so keeping these places clear isn't not only just about the handicap and everyone else being able to get by, but literally it is not meant to be a place to live. I find that we, some of the advocates, if you will, on the other side, fail to mention the criminality that happens against the homeless, oftentimes by the homeless or other predators in the community.
Thanks. Good points. And Sherry, go ahead.
Yeah, just so you know, there's about 40% of the aggravated assaults out of North Hollywood Division that are homeless upon homeless. That's where a lot of their calls are. So the police respond to that. And we've been lucky. I had a meeting with the deputy chief about 2 weeks ago, and he was talking, now that the valley has got all these tiny houses, navigation centers and bridge houses, is given the tools to the officers to enforce these rules because there's places for them to go. So that's been a big help. And I know that, in our area, we just have another set of tiny open houses opened up off of Whitsett and Satakoy up in that area. So we've got 3 tiny house areas going. We've got the navigation center. We've got the bridge housing on Raymer. So we've got what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places that they could go to. And of course, we all know that they're service resistant, most of them, and that's going to be an issue. But Devonshire Division last week was the first one to absolutely implement the 41.18 ordinance. So it's starting to happen. The police are going to enforce the first 2 aspects of it, except for the sensitive areas, because again, they have to be voted on. So nothing can be done about those yet. But I know our SLOs have been working hard on it, with the cleanups and having people move along and giving them fair warning. And so that's kind of been happening. And then to what Kim was saying, the county is not doing their job. It's real obvious. What you need to do when you have mental health or drug problems, drug addiction and all that with the homeless, call 211. That's the county line. They are in charge of mental health. And if they keep getting calls, something needs to be done. Brenda did get a hold of me to get Sean's email, because I know she reached out to him. So I don't know what that was about, but we know Sean has been working hard. That's been the biggest thorn in his side, is the park and ride over there. And he's doing whatever he can. You all know that he can't touch anybody inside the lot, but once they come out and they start committing crimes, then there's no holds barred. He'll take care of business. So
Great. Thank you. And seeing no other public comment, let's go to the committee. Jeff, let her rip.
Yeah, I applaud the effort to designate these areas as special enforcement zones. I visited the homeless encampments twice, the 5 around Studio City in the last couple of months. I'm going out there tomorrow because I'm on the homelessness committee. And prior to the implementation of 4118, you couldn't really walk through. It was extraordinarily unsafe. The disabled population could not walk or go down the sidewalks. People in strollers. Now I've seen people, now that the Coldwater underpass has been cleaned up, people are walking their dogs. They're now able to walk to Hugo's Tacos and enjoy their community once again. So I definitely applaud these sweeps. I think it'll be a useful tool to get the rest of these areas cleaned up and no longer become public safety and public health hazards. I will say too that the park and ride is in a terrible situation. I was shocked to learn that the Ralphs nearby on Vineland there in Ventura had suffered $350,000 worth of losses in the last 6 months, and it's become essentially the pantry for the park and ride residents. So, and I understand there was an assault there at the Ralphs recently. So, the county definitely needs to step up, and I think all of us need to put pressure on the county to do what needs to be done to make it safe again. Thanks.
Thank you. I see Marcia, you're here.
Yes, I'm here. I'm
Great.
in New York, but I'm here.
Okay,
Yeah.
that works. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you caught what we were just talking about with the first of 3 motions about prohibited locations that Paul Krikorian is putting forward, because I think
Yeah.
everyone's pretty much chimed in. Unless you have nothing else to say, I think I'd like to call for a vote.
Okay. Yeah, I have nothing else to say.
Okay, great. So on this motion, Scott Mandel is a yes, Jeff Hartwick
Yes.
and Patty Kirby
Yes.
and Marcia Newman.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. Moving right along to item 8. This is going to be almost verbatim to number 7. And the way Paul is doing this, as I previously explained, is he's listing the locations, grouping them together and putting them in a format that he feels best for passage and enforcement. So I'll quickly read item 8 agenda, then I'll read the motion, and then if someone will second it, we'll go from there. So item 8, discussion possible motion, CIS, pertaining to the designation of locations for enforcement against sitting, lying, sleeping, or storing, using, maintaining, or placing personal property or otherwise obstructing the public right of way with respect to Council File 214118-S5. The previous one was S4. Title designation of prohibited locations, Los Angeles Municipal Code 4118, Council District 2. This motion is to be submitted as a community impact statement to that same council file. I'll read the motion. The Board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council supports Council File 21-4118-S5, titled Designation of Prohibited Locations, LAMC Section 4118, Council District 2. The LA City Council passed and the mayor signed revisions to Los Angeles Municipal Code 41.18C1 and D. As per the ordinance, council members are responsible for the designation of locations in their district as prohibited locations where encampments and other associated activities are to be prohibited within 500 feet. We support Councilman Krikorian's designation of the various parks and schools listed in the council file as prohibited locations. Although not in Studio City proper, these facilities are available to and are used by the stakeholders of Studio City. Having public parks and schools designated as prohibited use is necessary to ensure that these public spaces are safe, clean, and available to all of the public. We encourage Councilmember Krikorian to continue with his prohibited use designations in CD2 in accordance with LAMC 4118C1 and D. This motion is to be submitted as a community impact statement to that council file. Second, please.
I'll second, Patty.
Thank you. And this is pretty much the same thing, except Paul in this resolution lists parks and schools. If the board insists I have the names and addresses of the parks and schools that we can put into the motion. It seems redundant, so I'm thinking we can sort of pass it like this. And if it's insisted that I put in the addresses, it's just a simple copy and paste. So let's go on to public comment. Barry, the floor is yours.
Yeah, and since you're supporting the council file, you really don't have to put in the list like of schools and stuff. And I'll just say ditto for everything I said in number 7 for number 8, regarding schools, and ditto again when we get to number 9. So I won't raise my hand for number 9. Thanks.
Thank you. So as Barry had said, now we're talking, now Paul is talking about public parks and public schools. So again, with all the places there are, Paul seems to be very reasonable and picking these locations such as parks and schools. So they're available to all of the public and they're not commandeered and turn into no-go zones or what have you. So any committee members want to make some comments, feel free.
I think we're all pretty much, it's a no-brainer once again. Let's go for it.
All right,
Agree. It's a no-brainer.
thank you. So Scott Mandel, I vote yes. Jeff Hartwick,
Yes.
Patty Kirby,
Yes,
and Marcia Newman.
Yes.
Okay, the no brains win. It's unanimous. Okay, moving on to item number 9. That sound very repetitive, but since they're all separate council files. This is what I have to do. Number 9, discussion and possible motion, community impact statement pertaining to the designation of locations for enforcement against sitting, lying, sleeping, or storing, using, maintaining, or placing personal property or otherwise obstructing the public right of way with respect to Council File 21-4118S6, title, Los Angeles Municipal Code, Section 4118, designation of prohibited locations. Someone can mute as some noise coming through. Prohibited locations, Council District 2. This motion is also be submitted as a community impact statement to that same council file. Let me read the motion. It's very similar, except there's a few change of words because the locations are different. So the Board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council supports Council File 21-4118-S6, title, Los Angeles Municipal Code, Section 4118, designation of prohibited locations, Council District 2. The LA City Council passed and the mayor signed revisions to the Los Angeles Municipal Code, Section 4118, C1 and D. As per the ordinance, council members are responsible for designating locations where encampments and other associated activities are to be prohibited within 500 feet. We support Council Member Kokorian's designation of the various tiny home villages, navigation centers, bridge homes, and designated facility shelters as prohibited locations. Although not in Studio City proper, these facilities are available and are utilized by the unhoused of Studio City. Having these locations designated as prohibited use will eliminate one of the many negative effects these facilities can bring to the local community, mainly an influx of encampments, often just a few feet away. This will encourage the construction of similar facilities for the unhoused in CD2 and other districts and help bring the unhoused indoors. This motion is also to be submitted as a community impact statement to Council File 21-4018-S6. So the difference in this one is the prohibited locations were actual places where the homeless are housed. And the reason why that's important is because the communities have been against tiny homes and shelters inside their areas or around their areas because it would draw homeless encampments and crime and such adjacent to the actual shelters. What Paul is obviously doing here is trying to encourage more of these built and discourage people from living on the streets, on the parks, or adjacent to these facilities. So if I understand correctly, I believe he has built the capacity for 800 or so unhoused in CD2, which was approximately the number that was in the last homeless count. And I feel we should support Paul Krikorian's designation of these areas as prohibited to encourage the creation of more of these, to get people off the street and into facilities like these across the entire city and all other council districts. And I think Paul has actually taken the lead in this area. So we'll go to public comment. I'm not seeing any. I guess I need a second.
I'll second Patty Kirby.
So Patty, thank you. And not seeing public comment. Committee members, anyone have anything to say about this one? I think we all covered it pretty well with the previous two. Not seeing any hands. Let's go to the vote. Scott Mandel is yes. Jeff Hartwick,
Yes.
Patty Kirby,
Yes.
and Marcia Newman.
Yes.
Okay. Let's just take a look and see if Sean Smith wasn't able to make it tonight. Okay. Moving right along. Item 10. Discussion and possible motion regarding the Metro's Public Safety Advisory Committee, whose purpose is to work with a coalition of community leaders to, quote, re-envision transit safety. That includes examining ways to scale back policing in favor of social workers and mental health professionals, as well as unarmed transit ambassadors who would be deployed on buses and trains and at metro stations. There isn't a council file yet. The Metro is kind of like a county-run transit authority with members of the city and various organizations on the board. They created this Public Safety Advisory Committee shortly after the George Floyd protests for a way, in their words, to reimagine public safety, which would include the possible elimination of armed LAPD at the stations, the trains, the buses, and such, and turn that over to transit ambassadors. I don't know if we're ready for a motion. I think we're getting the conversation started. So before I go on to this anymore, I want to hear from the public. So Barry Johnson, please go ahead and tell us your thoughts. Or was your hand up from a previous comment? I think Barry is. Oh, there he is.
No, I was just going to say, GAC has done many motions to the Metro board, which includes Paul Krikorian, who's a member of that board, and the mayor and a couple other council people. I think there's like 15 on the board. But yeah, you could definitely do a motion to the Metro board, and I've got Scott, I can email you all of them and their email addresses. So yeah, you definitely could do that. And I guess I support the idea of this, particularly social workers and mental health professionals, because I think from what I've seen writing the Metro, people carrying a gun aren't really, they're great, except they're not trained to deal with people with mental issues. So I'm not saying we should do away with them. And I don't know if Metro is, but I think we need some additional people in addition to the Metro police. And maybe Metro, by doing this, ridership can get back up again, because even before the pandemic, it wasn't wonderful. People were afraid to ride. So Metro's got a real PR assignment they need to get done here. Thanks.
Thank you, Barry. Brandon, go ahead, please.
Yeah, when you're talking about transit ambassadors, You put it in quotations, transit ambassadors. Are we talking like guardian angels? Is that when they're talking about transit ambassadors, are they talking about a deputized force of individuals who unarmed but have, I don't know, a particular set of skills or something like that? What do they mean by transit ambassadors? Did you put that in quotations or did they put that in quotations?
Thanks, Brandon. I put it in quotations because I don't know exactly what it means. I don't think Metro knows what it means. I think the key, at least based on the mission statement and what I saw on the Public Safety Advisory Committee's website, was the key was that they weren't going to be LAPD, and they were going to, in addition to helping people navigating the Rube Goldberg system of the Metro as it is today, they were going to talk people down and talk to homeless, talk to people who might be committing crimes or harassing or trash or whatever it be, and be able to resolve it with their training, with their skills. To Barry's point, I think adding these ambassadors and counselors and social workers is great. I just don't think it should be at the expense of removing LAPD. I think they could do whatever they want in addition to, because people are not going to ride the rails and the wheels without security, given especially all the crime, the assaults, and stuff that's being reported happening on the trains. And Sherry, go ahead. You're next.
I just would like to explain to you a little bit more about this situation. We had the senior lead officer from the Transit Service Bureau come and speak with us last month at our CPAD meeting. And basically the Transit Service unit is responsible for safety and all the metro services in the city of Los Angeles, meaning buses and trains and everything. They've had the contract for 4.5 years. The Sheriff's Department had it before, and Metro wasn't very happy with the Sheriff's Department. The officers go through extensive training, use of force and de-escalation, and I guess people don't understand that, but they do. They have 150 police officers that are assigned to this throughout the city. They are on overtime, and it is paid for by the federal government because it's the federal government told Transit that they have to provide safety. Right now, just with them working, they have taken over, a reduced crime has been reduced by 30% by just having them there. Because what happens is that they can dissuade people from coming out and doing crime. We have a lot of them coming into Universal Studios, City Station, and the NoHo West Station, NoHo Station. They have really reduced crime around there. And the problem is that you get these people that come off and they go and crime starts falling into our streets, and it's really important. And they've worked hard to do this. They have about another 6 months and possibly a year renewal contract for them. The Metro Board was in favor of them. All the unions that work with the Metro Board are in favor of having LAPD there. To have counselors and mental health workers. A lot of these homeless people, they're homeless and they're mentally ill. And a lot of times when our officers respond to a call, or these social workers respond to a call, it can turn violent real quickly. So what happens? The police are called instead to help with the situation. I just think that it's good to have it. It's going to really affect us. There'll be more people coming in. There's about 12 officers assigned every single day to all the metro lines and bus stations throughout the city. They have roll calls like 3 times a day. One's at Universal City Station. They have a fixed unit at the North Hollywood station there by NoHo. And that really has helped reduce a lot of crime, and we've gotten quite a few good arrests from that situation there. And the biggest complaint, that is on the transit services, as it is throughout the city, is the homeless people. And they've tried to get them into services and they refuse them. They constantly refuse services. I mean, you can talk to the police officers all the time, or senior leader will tell you that. It's really hard to get people to take these services. And when they're mentally ill or they're drug addicted, there's just no way getting through them. So basically, I think that having them on the trains does give you a sense of security for the law-abiding citizens there. And maybe it's a threat to the homeless people because they see people with guns, but they're there to even protect them. You get homeless on homeless. I mean, just look at the murder that happened last week in Hollywood Division, where a girl was shot by a homeless person and he got away. So I think it's a good idea, and I think that you should support it. You can be writing into the Public Safety Advisory Committee there at the Metro Board, make statements to the Metro Board just to let them know, and especially those that ride the buses all the time, to see how safe they feel. And if they really feel that, these ambassadors would be better, then that's up to them. You have any questions for me regarding what was said to us at our meeting? I know that I had asked the senior lead officer if he would like to come and speak to the Studio City Neighborhood Council, and he said, sure, just let him know and he can come and address you with more issues on that. So just let me know when and what time, and we could reach out to him, and he'd be more than happy to talk more about this issue.
Thank you. I think that would be a really good idea. I think we're sort of just scratching the surface on this topic, and it would probably be a good idea to get someone, a representative, to speak from LAPD, and I can contact the Metro Public Safety Advisory Committee and possibly hear from them, because this is an important topic, public transportation. With as far as all the new the green deal coming to LA that is going to focus on public transit, and all the new zoning changes that are also focusing on fewer parking spaces and constructions next to transit centers, the Metro is going to have to boost safety and confidence of the public to actually ride public transit. For those of you who do ride it, I ride public transit quite a bit. And for me, the sight of armed LAPD officers is welcome. I don't see enough of it. And I've seen quite a few incidents. I've actually been involved in a few incidents on the Red Line, and I don't ride that as much as I used to. And if anyone has ever taken public transit in, say, like New York City, the presence of police is, I mean, it's overwhelming compared to what we have here in LA. They still have crime and they still have issues, but they have a much bigger presence, and they have a much bigger transit system. And I think replacing LAPD or augmenting LAPD with these social workers, counselors are different and distinct. And I'm certainly for the augmenting LAPD. At the moment, I haven't heard anything that makes sense about replacing LAPD. If anyone else has any comments on this topic, Randy, go ahead.
Hi, Scott. I just want to echo your sentiment as someone who takes the train from Universal City Station to Financial District fairly regularly, and oftentimes take my 5-year-old son. Although I'm doing a lot less of that right now, quite frankly, because it's not safe. I think that, however, I agree with you, Scott, that it really shouldn't be an either or. It should be an and. The reality is that many of those that are unhoused are mentally ill and or suffer from issues of addiction. But at the same time, which I think we sometimes have to be careful of, is we can't talk about a whole group of people like it's a monolith. They're not, there are some advocates want to say they're all just down on their luck and they want help. And then sometimes on the other side, you have someone say, no, they're all criminals and resistant to assistance and drug addicts and want to commit crime. I think that it doesn't help any of us to make the generalizations in either direction. And I think that if we can assist our police officers with and have laid into those units mental health professionals, whatever, working with LAPD and mental health, instead of this crazy divide we have in our city where mental health is with the county and everything else is with the city, and it clearly doesn't work. LASA is a perfect example of what, in my opinion, of what doesn't work, a broken system that misses their metrics every year, and yet city taxpayer dollars continue to flow to them. It is a disservice to the community, and I'm including our, obviously, if it's not clear, our unhoused neighbors in that sense of community that is not doing them a service. So I just agree with you, and I hope we continue the conversation. I'd love to have Metro officers. I'd love to take Sherry up on that offer, because I do believe that it is very important that we hear more. But definitely, Scott, I agree with you. We need to have, and I think our officers as well would benefit from it, because that's not what they're trained for. Yes, we need to have them there probably if things escalate, but hopefully we can get things taken care of before they escalate, and just frankly get more mental health, because that's what people who are suffering from mental illness, the last thing they need, quite frankly, is to end up in the justice system, because that doesn't help, criminal justice system, because that doesn't help them. That doesn't help them either. So anyway, thanks.
Thanks. Jeff?
Yeah, I read the LAist article. I also found an article in the UCLA Bruin, and they referred to a 2020 study from the UCLA Lewis Center. It found that 72% of bus passengers and 48% of rail users reported instances of sexual harassment. And these are students from UCLA and other universities in LA County. And then from January 2019 to March 2021, LA Metro received 254 sexual offense reports from transit security. So there's lots of assaults going on in our system. So I believe that we need to continue with a robust police presence to deter these instances of assault. I read with interest this, as Brandon pointed out, the transit ambassador. Like, what does that mean? What does that entail? You know, if there's an assault going on, what can a transit ambassador do when they're not trained to really intervene or not carrying a weapon with them or handcuffs or whatnot? So I think we need to figure out what that entails in terms of the non-police response. Would that even be beneficial? I think we do need to have more social service intervention with the homeless population who are mentally ill that are in the metro system. Maybe we have a rapid response team, something like that. But I don't think the solution is to, you know, in the haste of the George Floyd thing from last year, I think the LA County board kind of rushed to this revisioning public safety. But I think we still need to continue with a robust public safety presence and maybe supplement it with some social services, but we need to be very careful about diluting our public safety component any further. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff. These are all really good points. And what I'm going to do is contact Metro and LAPD and try to get this agendized for the whole board at a board meeting, so we can have a nice discussion about the direction that the Public Safety Advisory Committee wants to go, and hear some more input on that. And speaking of safety, item 11, if Sherry and Patty have anything to update us on CPAB goings on, please go ahead.
Gary, I'm gonna let you go because I'm still
Yes.
in brain fog.
I know, not a problem. Of course, this came from our September meeting. Our meeting is next week, so we're always like, 3 weeks late and don't have any updated information until, next week. But basically, the captain was talking about the last week, which would have been a month ago, Just in that 1 week, they had 11 aggravated assaults and all involved the homeless people, upon homeless people. But compared to last year, we're only up like 1.2%. So that's good. There were 5 robberies last week. When I say last week, again, I mean the week of, what was it? Let me just look real quick on my calendar so you kind of know what date it was. The week of September 6th after Labor Day is what he's making reference to. Again, unfortunately, I'm sorry, it's old news in that respect. The SLOs have been going around to the tiny homes to help eliminate some of the crime in the area and to continue to offer help and services and to do cleanup. So that's why, like I had mentioned earlier, a lot of the cleanups are being done, you know, by the senior lead officers going out in their little task force. There has been the 3rd tiny house I told you about has opened up in North Hollywood. And the one thing that, you know, we keep hearing at every single CPAB meeting and that we keep telling everybody is that, you know, North Hollywood is getting hammered with stolen vehicles and burglary for motor vehicles, because the stolen cars just seem to get stolen for transportation, because usually they're found somewhere in the area. You know, somebody will come by and break into a car, steal it, and take off to go somewhere else and then just leave it. People still leave their things in the car. We tell them, don't leave anything in your car ever, and to watch your surroundings. I mean, if you're going from work to the gym and you take out your laptop and you put it locked into your trunk as you go walking to the gym, somebody has watched you put that in your laptop. I mean, that in your trunk. So they're going to go for it. So the best thing to do is just to keep your car just for transportation. Don't use it for an office. Don't use it for your gym. Don't use it for anything. And if you do need to make stops on your way home, put your stuff in your trunk before you leave that location to arrive at your next location. The holiday coming up and people are going to be going shopping, maybe, you know, the malls might be open and you may go shopping and you may end up with a bunch of packages in your hand and you got still more shopping to do. So people will go and throw them in their car and then go back in the mall and continue shopping. Well, we were told this several years ago by our Captain Donnie Graham, that he said, don't do that. He says, put your packages in your car, get in your car and move to a different parking location, because somebody again is watching you. They'll see you put stuff in your trunk, you go back in shopping, they're going to break into your car and get what you just bought. So he just says it may be a little bit more difficult, but he says the best thing to do is to just leave your parking spot and pretend that you're going out, you're going home, and find another spot and continue with your shopping. And again, this can go with anything in the small businesses or when you're shopping around the neighborhood. You really have to be careful. The other thing is that we have a violent crime task force, which is a specialized unit that goes out like every week. And there's like 2 patrol cars and 1 supervisor. And they've been able to make arrests, you know, proactively. And as of year to date, they have gotten 154 guns off the street just with their proactive stuff. That's basically because we did have, you know, our neighborhood prosecutor come and talk to us about, you know, 4118 and all the ramifications and how it goes about. And we also had the senior lead officer from the transit unit come and give us a talk about the situation. So those were the 2 main issues that we discussed at the meeting. But there's something else that, you know, I just wanted to announce to the Studio City Neighborhood Council is that every year, you know, PALS has their annual luncheon, and we have an award given to the CPAB Member of the Year. And it's my choice of who to pick since I'm the co-chair, and I ended up picking 2. One of them happens to be Steve Schwartz, who really does a great job by sending in reports every week that he gets off of next door to his area, sends them to the captain and the patrol captain. And every month he does this, and it's just absolutely phenomenal. Then there's this other person, I don't know if you've ever heard of her, Patty Kirby. You know,
Oh my gosh.
yes, yeah, she is CPAB Member of the Year. because of so many things that she has done and continues to do. She was, when I started in my neighborhood watch over in Colfax Meadows, Patty was one of my block captains, and I moved over here south of the boulevard into my family home, and Patty's kept neighborhood watch going. She's obviously been very active on the neighborhood council and the public safety committee and all the other committees that she's been doing. And she's set up our meetings on Zoom. If she hadn't done that, we probably wouldn't be meeting. So for all those reasons, I felt that, she deserves to be honored too. The Pals Luncheon is going to be on Wednesday, November 4th. Is it November 3rd at the Olive and Grill in Studio City. And the tickets are $50 a person if anybody wants to come. And for her getting her award, you can go to NoHo, NoHo Pals. Let me get the, yeah, nohopals.com. And you can sign up and purchase a table there, or you can purchase tickets or whatever. And it's that new restaurant, Olive and Grill. I don't know if anybody has gone to it yet. It's where the Russian restaurant was, right across the street from Art's Deli, that Russian place. That's where it's going to be. And it's like 11:30 until, I don't know, 2, a luncheon. So that's the most exciting thing that's happened at CPAP.
I'd like to say thank you, Sherry, and I'm embarrassed. I don't think I've done that much work.
Yes,
But
you have.
anybody that would come to the luncheon would be super great to see you all there and support the whole entire PALS, LAPD PALS system. Thank you.
You're welcome. So that's all I have to say. Any questions?
And isn't there a coffee with a cop?
Oh, yes, excuse me. I'm sorry. Thank you for reminding me that. Yeah, just today, I get an email with a flyer on it. And Sean apparently has gotten a coffee with a cop this Sunday at Starbucks at Alcove and Ventura, right by Ralph's Market and Petco, right there in the corner, that one. And it's from 12:30 to 2:30. It's being sponsored by Starbucks. So CPAB doesn't have anything to do with it, but most of, those that us are available will probably come by and hang out. So you may want to post that on your webpage to let everybody know in the Studio City area. Sean's going to be there. And I imagine probably a couple of the other SLOs will be there too. And I know that the captain has stopped by in the past, so I don't know if he'll pop into this one or not. Like I said, I just got that flyer, and that's all the information I have.
That's great. I'll see if I can get Randy to include that in an email blast advising people. I believe our website's going to be going through some changes thanks to the work of our outreach chair, Brandon, and we will be able to populate our own modules. So public safety would be able to post things like this and the Patty Kirby Awards and such. So people can then go to our website and to our module and see what's going on in the community. So thank you very much for that. And then for future issues, items, I don't know, I think we can start getting into some other areas of public safety that are not crime related. I think that'd be a nice addition to our agenda. I'm thinking about having CERT, the Community Emergency Response Team, which is a program run by the city and the fire department. I'm looking at my certificate right there. I was certified. I did CERT training right here in Studio City. It's a great course. It's great for public safety. It sort of tells you that, when it hits the fan and there's the earthquake or the disaster, they're not coming for you. And they give you some really good training on what to do and how to do it when, if and when that unfortunate event does occur. So I'll be slowly working items like that into our agenda in the future, because we're just sort of getting our feet wet, getting started with this whole public safety thing. I appreciate all your attendance and contribution. And with that, absent anything else from anyone, how about we adjourn at 7:08? Anybody else agree with that?
Sounds great.
I'll second.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. And please come to the board meeting next week. Randy, did you have something to say?
All I was just going to say that I'll have that YouTube link for the homelessness committee meeting. So if anyone wants to reference that, I'll send a YouTube link to Scott and he can
Great.
disseminate it to everyone. It's currently loading now to YouTube, so it should be watchable in a few minutes.
So while we have Randy there, Randy, I'm not getting the notices of the committee meetings. I missed land use last night. I don't know what's happening.
Are you, so you're not receiving any of the notices from the city either?
Right.
If you go to the SCNC website, you can sign up for every last one of them.
Well, I've done that many times, but I'll do it again.
The city sent out the one for land use a few hours before the meeting, and they sent mine out actually a few hours earlier today. I don't know if it was the holiday or there was a bug in their system, but the notices that went in long before the deadline took 4 days, 5 days before they were distributed. So that was the city.
Yeah, and then I would potentially just check, make sure that it's, I'm sure you've checked before, but make sure that it's not going to a spam filter.
I always do that. But Randy, you used to send out like once a week something that had all the committee meetings. I know it's another job. Maybe
No. You're absolutely right.
Maybe outreach could take that on.
I have no problem. Accepting that. You are absolutely right. And something that I've spoken to Brandon about and seeing if I get some assistance, but just ensure that there is something that goes out. Also, there was a recent discussion, I don't mind telling everyone, a recent discussion about my e-blasts. So for example, I had mentioned in, I believe it was in the July e-blast, and then the recent one as it relates to redistricting, because I think that redistricting is something very important that's happening. And for those that are following Council District 2, which we are currently in, there are proposals on the table that are potentially wildly different than what it's been, and potentially place Studio City and a whole other kind of sphere of communities. And so while yes, I said we should be advocating for the southwest corner of the valley, I didn't say how one should be advocating, but by simply saying advocating for the southeast corner of the valley, and we don't have everything that we should have as of yet in terms of services. When you think of what we provide to the tax base for the city, there was actually a grievance that was filed by a stakeholder. So I hope am in recent conversations with the city attorney's office as it relates and just ended with Dunn about guidance that although there are other NC presidents that regularly opine and weekly and editorialize what's happening in the city and in their neighborhoods, they do not have the scrutiny, fortunately or unfortunately, that we have. And so that's why there's been a little bit of a delay in recent months. But hopefully I hope to be back to that. And so I apologize, Patty, but you will see regular emails with more just kind of general notices of what's upcoming.
Okay. Well, it is 7:12 and I'm going to say good night. Thank you, committee. Thank you, other SCNC board and committee members. And thank you, members from the public, for attending. And please attend the board meeting next week. Go to our webpage, look at our calendar, get the agendas, get the meetings, and
Go Dodgers.
attend and participate. Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.